the mathematical understanding of programs in nature. This is the title of my input. So this is not just about well-being and feeling happy and taking a bath in the great outdoors and smelling flowers, but this is program logic, because you have to understand nature as one major computer program, and we are getting close to what are the processes in nature. And I will, in fact, divide this up into 4 bits. First, I will tell you a little bit about how we're doing. We are a partner, we are your partner, we are your host, so we want to tell you how are we faring, just as we like to know how you are faring. And then what's going to change the world, the understanding of biological processes, to understand what is biology doing and how can we harness this knowledge. And these are major steps coming our way. And then I have a whole block about investment possibilities. Not much time for that. We will just get some buzzwords, but we're doing the work. We do the pre-selection for you. And we buy the shares that we are talking about. All the shares that we're talking about are already in funds. So this is just a wide range of what we see in our everyday life. And then I will talk about the program of the day. We start off in a fairly simple way, and then it gets more and more difficult and more complex. So hang on to your desk and make sure you jot things down, because it's difficult stuff. I don't know anything about natural sciences, but I am amazed at what I see. And if that amazement is something that we can convey, well, then we're happy. We don't have to explain everything, but we have to know what it is that science is investigating right now. Where do we have the research now? Yeah, we have value philosophy. We've had that in our program since 1994. And companies with strong business models, great know-how, we like to buy those. And we're interested in artificial intelligence. And okay, we want to be there in the investment world where everything is going to be happening in the future. 1.3 billion at the end of the month, it will be 1.4. During crisis, we increased it, and now we have more. And with our performance, we managed to broaden our range. I studied economics and business administration. I was at Matzler. Then I became the head of ACATIS. Back then it was 2 people. Now there's 40 people here. And I'm portfolio manager. So we topped the 10 billion level in euro assets that we have under management. The oldest one, ACATIS Value Flex, 500 million, Datini Value Flex, also the ACATIS Global Fund. And all of the shares that are mentioned today are in one of those 2 funds. 500 million euros in Austria. And in terms of sustainability of the, according to Article 8, 5 billion euros. And in Article 9, 500 million euros in sustainability funds. And in terms of content, it is great that this is positive performance and outperformance. We are getting more funds and more means. We're happy about our AI-driven funds. They are outperforming. And we have monthly performance measurements. And they are usually better than what people do. AI is the way of the future, because I'm happy about that, because I want the computer to do part of my job. And what is important for us is, of course, sustainability. Sometimes I don't know which is the best sustainability concept. So we asked our clients. And we have 20 criteria that our clients consider to be extremely important. We coded them and we use them for our Article 8 sustainability funds. What you see now here is a little planet picture. You see Stefan Risse, Thomas Bosch down there, who are now planting trees. This is in 2 areas in Germany where we plant trees, and 20,000 trees we decided to do. This is a beautiful mixed forest, and the first 3,500 seedlings have been placed, and they are growing nice and strong. Yeah. Why do we do a value conference? And one that has a very strange or unusual format. When you hear Lagafeti, the last time you will hear it. Draghi is something we're not talking about. We're not talking about politics today, because we want to deal with the things that really change the world. And we have seen that time and again in the past. We had Dr. Huslage here. That was just right smack in the middle of the Volkswagen scandal. And he talked to us about the E-platform for Volkswagen. And the cars are there today and are changing the market in the electromobility scene. We talked about vegetarian beef. We talked about the avatars. You see that in the picture on the right-hand side. And how can my voice be put onto somebody else's face, deep fake. And we talked about virtual realities. There's a picture of Bentley systems here that make digital twins of construction sites. They probably didn't do that for the airport in Berlin, and also not for the train station in Stuttgart. If not, they would have fared much better. Okay, but we're talking about something else today. Let's get away from metal and computers. Let's talk about the cell. And for that, I have a number of quotes that I find are incredible. Richard Feynman, 1959. Anybody who's interested in the books of Richard Feynman, physics Nobel laureate, he was part of the development team for the A-bomb. Great scientist. He was the one in the commission after the space shuttle accident, finding out what was the cause of the accident. He said, there's plenty of room at the bottom, but the moment I get into the cell, there's lots of room there. And you will see it when you look at the comparison of size, when you look at what is happening at the molecular level. There's lots of room for research, for analysis, for tools. And then a German physicist of Roman descent, Stefan Hell, who worked at the Max Planck Institute on the light microscopes. And there he talked about the wavelengths of light. And he says, this is a law that is carved in stone, and let me break that. And we can do research into things that are below the wavelength of light, because he had managed to find tools that get us down to the atomic level. And another thing that really, really shocks me, because I read things that floor me, and that is from a conference call from Amiris. You may remember Evolva, they had a presentation how to use enzymes and modify them. And then Amiris, we have them in our portfolio, to them with Codex. They have introduced 17 novel enzymes in yeast. They insert them in yeast and altered 53 native genes, and 500,000 strains have been looked into, and started 1,500 fermentation processes to find the right candidate. These are dimensions and magnitudes that were not possible before. So this is a systematic research looking at enzyme activities. And another event that was at the Sofitel conference. There was a Danish company called GenMap. They had a presentation there at the Opera House. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be boring. But the food was great. And then they said, we have a pipeline of knock your socks off products in 2025. And when a company says that, it's not because they want to probe around a bit, but because they say they really do have technological changes in their product portfolio that will change the world. And a new medication has been approved by them together with Johnson. And today we have the people from BioNTech here. They work with GenMap too. They're all doing fantastic work in the field of cancer research. So I'm always looking at, where is something happening? And I always find something that is really dramatic. And where does that lead us? We are talking about a number of small things and a great deal of things to understand what nature is presenting to us. Nature has programmed many, many processes, but we don't know them yet. And the better we look at them, the better we understand nature, the more we can make it usable for us.
So that's why we have got Back to the Nature chosen as a title. So we want to look deeper in it because we don't know enough right now about the nature. So we want to optimize molecules for the pharma science. Aspirin is still a very conventional molecule and it is working fine in the human body. But we are talking about more complex things. How can I challenge the body to make him defensible? How can I optimize his antibodies? And we are talking about gene modification. That means that failure genes could be repaired in the body, but we are also talking about of optimization of the food. Maybe I can optimize food in this manner that it has more power. We're talking about that. And then we are also talking about yeast and to introduce us in enzymatic procedure. So we have got two images referring about the medical development. So Dr. Schneckenburger is very important today. He is talking about the Rizinus plant. He was the director of the Botanic Garden in Darmstadt. So we were on several botanic trips with him in Malaysia. I remember that, on an island, and he showed me a Rizinus plant, and he told me that this is one of the most poisoned plants. So you can see this plant here. All the medical discoveries in the last 1,000 years, and was just to observe the nature, isolate this observation, and use it in a pharmacological way. So aspirin is from the landscape. It is this substance that we could use without a pharmaceutical industry. We applied it on a human being, and it was working just fine in some manner. So this was how medicine worked up to the 19th century. We will have a speaker here talking about that topic, and then we had the phase of the discovery and the science. So, for instance, the yeast pill. So, the yeast, so penicillin was discovered just while they were working on with yeast and noticed that it was killing other bacteria. So this could be used in a medical manner, but it was just luck, this discovery. So in the 17th and in the 80s, we noticed that the moss was important. So just a high-focus screening. So we tried everything. You can see these pipettes on the right side. We had cabinets full of molecules and tested them in a million ways just to check if there's something around that could be useful. And if it works, we can try it in mice and then in a human being. So it was just trying in mass procedures. And then 2019, we noticed that on cancer medication we had got a big effect, but are not really sure what we are doing. So I'm thinking about billiard, a pool. So I'm playing billiard and think I will get one ball, and at the end it was just luck if at the end I have an effect. But we are not sure how it works really. So now, in the next years, we are understanding what's happening inside of the cells. So now we can work focused on this cell. So the enzymes, I just want to talk about that shortly. McKinsey says that 60% of all product could be upgraded by enzymes. Enzymes are really something we use day by day. Beer, for instance, was always part of the human nature. So it was also very healthy and safe, even sometimes healthier, or the fermentation was healthier than water. Beer, yeast, wine was always connected to human life, and it has got a civilization effect. Whiskey, for instance, we have got this whiskey, one of my favorite one, Big Ale. So before distillation, we have the fermentation process. Bread, this has always been part of the human being, also produced with yeast. We are not thinking about it, but the yeast is doing all the work in the bread. Yogurt. My wife likes to eat skyr, and of course cheese. Why we have got these holes in the cheese? Well, this is due to the yeast. It's something we really know. So getting in a little bit lower, on a lower level. So we had on the left image of amyris, stevia. Stevia is very bitter, and with an enzymatic process, amyris could convert it in a more pleasurable product. So we see these two human beings on the other image, on the next image. So they're using a bioreactor, and on one hand it's plastic, on the other hand it's yeast, or maybe an enzyme, and within 24 hours both products convert the polyethylene into original molecules that could be reused in the chemical procedure. So this is a recycling through enzymes and yeast. And you know, at the right side, well, we know it from the detergents, so the enzymes help to clean our clothes. So what's happening here? So I think it is a Lollapalooza effect. And this term, I have this term from Charlie Munger, who is sometimes getting straight to the point. Lollapalooza is something very dramatic, something amazing, which is happening. Well, several effects are coming together and have a double positive effect. So we are now at that point. We are starting a new age in the enzyme investigation, in the medical science, and we have lived that with the internet. Well, internet for us is now something that has happened, and it has always been there. But it happens step by step. The mouse was very important. So we didn't need the lines. So we had images, we had icons that you could store the data and send them through the net. The browser discovery to have a look at all different details. So several things came together and something new was created. So I think today we have got 2.5 billion people connected through Facebook. Maximum before was defined through a telephone book, maybe with 500,000 participants. So now we are connected in a manner that we never expected. And I think what we have lived the last 25 years with the internet is now coming to us in the biology. What's that? This huge number and volume of data material. So we have got really on the technology level, a lot of discoveries. We have got the AI, CRISPR, that's technology to have a look into the genes and to change the genes. We have got the sequencing of the next generation. This means to do a quicker analysis of the genetic. We have the mRNA technology. Today, everybody knows what that is. A year before, it was impossible. This technology is also a game changer in the pharmacology. On the right side, we have got the efficiency of costs. Everything is getting cheaper. The performance of computer is better. The storage of data, the sequencing is easier, and we are lowering down, and it's getting smaller and smaller, and the processes are getting smaller and smaller. And then we have got the big volumes. We have got a huge amount of data. A lot of people have analyzed their gene data. A lot of gene data are there. A lot of cells. So all technology come together, are improving, and we have got a lot of usage for human beings. So starting with a small one. We are going down to the bottom more and more. I have got this red filter here. I ordered it a couple of days ago for my camera. So I have got a better performance at my camera, a black and white camera. So 530 to 750 nanometer. This is about the resolution lower than the half longitude of the wave. So I cannot catch objects that are smaller. And so how can I have a look at the virus and the molecules? So having a look at the scale in nanometers, so have a look. So we have always so we have got 100 million nanometer. This is a tennis ball. So going a factor down, the cancer cell, it's 1 million nanocell centimeters. So then I go to the bacteria. They are 10,000 nanometer. So 10 micrometers. 50 micrometers is a human hair. So we are at that level. Now we're getting to the virus. 1,000 nanometer, 1 micrometer. Then we are going to the antibodies. So we're really going to the resolution of the lights. So a normal microscope is impossible to see that. Antibody, glucose and water, 1 nanometer. That means that we are at a level where light could not help us. We need new procedure to understand that. And just a reminder, computer chips are around 2 nanometers. I think it's thickness, or that is, IBM is working on that. 10 to 20 nanometers is the industrial standard. So we need new procedure for that, because the light standard is impossible. a lot. What is a huge amount? How many cells do we have? I'm really not an expert, so maybe for an expert these numbers are not 100% right. We have 30 billion human cells and 300 million cells renew every day. So fresh cells every day. In 100 days I have renewed myself 100% because most of the cells are renewed 100%. So per cubic millimeter blood, I have got 500 to 1,600 T cells. These are the small attack to give an immunological response. Every T cell has 100,000 receptors on the surface of the cell, and that is specialized in one antigen. So it is going right to the point and docking to that point and gives immune response. And then we have got the antigens. I thought we just have a couple. We are talking about the spike protein, for instance, but there are 40 to 7 billion antigens in the human body. So thinking about how many intruders we have got in our body, and they are working against our antibodies. So these are millions and billions. That's a lot. So on the left side, we have got the attacker, the bacteria, the virus, the fungus, and the cancer cells. So it's millions and billions fighting against the other cells, the B and T cells, and the antibodies. So, for instance, when we go to the doctor, so maybe you have got like a bacteria infect, and that's it. The doctor stops there. Today, the doctor has no clue what you have. He says some symptoms, and then you get a standard antibioticum. So we are on the left side, we are blinded, and the right side, we are also blinded. So we have got some standard product and hope that they have got an effect on the human body. Typically, the doctor says, and if it has no effect, please contact me again, and we try another substance. So the medical solution should be understand on the left side which attacker we have, on the right side how can we defend and destroy this attacker. And the nice topic is that this year we as human beings have really been very close to this process, and how we analyze. We know exactly what a PCR test is, and we know precisely which virus we have got in the body, and we can create the antibody cells against this virus. We have learned that in the last year, and now we can treat focused on this attacker, so cheap. This is only possible because we can pay for this. For instance, Centrogenes, and doing a gene test, PCR test is valued in 69 euros. The first full gene sequence costed 2 to 3 billion. But the costs for this analyzed technique has been reduced massively. 10 years ago, it wouldn't be possible to do a PCR test because we have got lowered the cost dramatically. You know, we have got a logarithmic curve, you know, the Moore's law. So the green curve shows clearly that we have accelerated on that point, and that the human gene could be sequenced for approximately $1,000. For non-experts, it's just $100 because we have got just one sequence. So for a serious investigation, we need approximately $1,000. And our companies that are at our portfolio are talking about this cost. Amiris told us that the cost of the product development has been reduced by 90%. The time for market introduction has been shortened by 80%. So we could really, the throughput could be increased by thousands, so with lower costs. So we have got really strong power in investigation and development. Calculation we know in the last year this is a cell with the spike antigen on the surface. A simulation by the computer with 305 million atoms. Every atom will be simulated, and this is only possible with computer, with super processors. And we plan that this year we will have 1 billion medication in a simulation. So AA will test 5.2 billion molecules and filter them. This is really breathtaking. This was impossible a year ago, and this has got dramatic impact on the development of medication. About the company Schrödinger, you know Schrödinger's cat from the physics. So this is an American company that optimizes molecules.
And they said that in the first half year of last year, they tested 37 billion active agents on the computer, and everything done on a computer. And he then wrote, I think we're at the beginning of an industrial revolution. So that's what it looks like. 1 billion computer simulations of a molecule for an aspirin or variants of the aspirins. And the question then is, what could we do to make it more tolerable? So you take the molecule and you change it and modify it just a bit, and then you have 1 billion variants. And of those, you choose 1,000 and put it through an artificial learning algorithm, and then you say 1 billion, and then you give them marks, school marks. You are a good candidate, you are a bad candidate, and so on. And then at the end of the day, they have very few candidates that they will then manufacture in a lab, and then eventually, they will do tests with mice. And then you have, at the very end of the day, you have a new type of medication. So tolerability, side effects, efficacy. So you have optimized medicine. And then you have this self-explanatory picture, as you all know. This is a convolutional neural network. You see it right away. So which proteins do you actually get if you give the ribosome a special programming instruction? We don't have that knowledge yet. We know the proteins. This is a convoluted thing. But you don't know how to get there, how to get to that particular protein. We can copy nature, but to say we will give a certain programming command, that simply don't work. But last year, it almost worked out with 2 proteins. Who's doing that? It's Google. So within Google Alphabet, there is one unit which has this artificial intelligence. They work on the Go computers, the chess computers, and they're now doing those things as the protein structures. Again, a huge breakthrough for the development of medication, and it's fast. And the biotech industry has become extremely fast. So this is something that I got from a discussion with Accelera. So this is about COVID, this real pandemic, and how to fight it. We know that man produces antibodies against the virus. And which antibody was the one that was effective? So what they did, they took a recovered patient and analyzed all of his antibodies, and then within a few days they found 50 of those antibodies that could have been effective and isolated one of them and said, this is probably the one. And that was from March, and they used that for 400,000 patients. So So from learning what is it, what kind of disease is this, up to creating the medication, it only took 9 months. That's extremely fast. And extremely fast, it's also with BioNTech. We have BioNTech here today at the Value Conference. They are giving the last input for the day. And I've never seen a company that can make these drastic leaps. These are the analysts' views for BioNTech. We started with a sales volume of $500 million, and we're moving to 12 billion the next year. Find one company that has done such a leap ever. And I think it's even much more than that, because Pfizer, they're talking about 26 billion. The German analysts think it's 12 billion. I think it's a bit more than that. I have never seen anything like that. I have seen many things, many fast developments, but never, 24 times, 24-fold within a year. And BioNTech, they're full of optimism because they're not doing cancer research. They're not doing virus research. It's not a corona company, but it's actually they're into cancer research. And they are now talking about 4 different platforms that they are testing now in their fight against cancer. And that is the interesting thing about BioNTech. That's why today they will in fact talk about the fight against cancer and not so much about the vaccinations. So what is biology doing? As I said, I have a very simple understanding of this. For me, biology is programming. I got to meet this lady, Ala Janeth. She got the Nobel Prize. She's a Nobel laureate. Many Nobel laureates received a prize, and she was the one who received it in 2008 for having done the research on ribosome. An elderly lady who's doing her research in Haifa, but she was also here in Heidelberg, and she said, a ribosome is a machine that gets instruction from the genetic code and operates chemically in order to produce the product. And she says this is basically a machine that decodes all the programs. So this is, you have the genetic code, this is the programming instruction, and gets into ribosome. And as you see, we have 4 letters for that, A, C, G, C. And it's just like in regular programming, 0 and 1. So they're like a chain, it's a program band, like a ticker tape, into ribosome. And then on the other side, you have a protein. That's the final result. So there's a chemical reaction in order to produce the product, and that is the protein. And we call it the cellular machine. Very fast, very well, very accurately. And they have to proofread the result, and then they have to protect the product. So this is a quote again, and the product then is a protein. The cellular machine. And that leads me to a regular, normal computer, which you have in every single cell. So you get an instruction, a command, and then they perform, and then you have the cellular machine. Then you have the product, which would be the protein. So on the left-hand side, you have the mRNA, and then ribosome, and then you either get an antigen, an antibody, a hormone, or an enzyme. So if you have corona, or if you're cold, or well, in cancer cells, you have the neoantigens, you have hormones help you to reduce sugar for diabetics, or enzymes that control chemical reactions. And this is what is the computer program for a chicken. You can actually have all the programming steps for a chicken. So that doesn't make the chicken complete yet. There's more to it than that. But if I only change one letter in this, you have a different type of chicken. Small feathers, big feathers, different kind of cackling, whatever. So all of that control the end result of the chicken. And then for me, as the man who studied business administration, I look at the noumena that decode the figures. Then I have the bioreactors to produce insulin. There's a company in Germany called Sartorius. Another one is called Merck. They have bioreactors to create proteins. And then I have the different type of reactions. Then I have BioNTech. They are responsible for antigens for the reaction against viruses or cancer cells. Regeneron, Gilead, and Genmab, they have the antibodies. Novo Nordisk. And then you have Evolva, Codexis, Ameris. They design yeasts to produce these enzymes. And that's interesting also economically, and that's the reason why we're here today. If you look at these companies, you see what kind of increases in sales these companies have gone through. Tenfold in 10 years. There's a huge dynamism in this, and that's also the reason why we have this conference. Things are happening economically, and we as investors have to take up this opportunity to benefit from it economically, but also this will help us have a longer life. I will shorten this a bit now because I only want to touch upon which companies we may be talking about, and you can read up on it, please. But we have the technology side. These are the companies that provide the machinery. We have the world of the tests, because somebody has to carry out these tests, PCR tests, for example. And then you have the discovery part. You have to have the mice. And then you have to have the research bit itself. And then, of course, those that have the solutions for us, the manufacturers of antibiotics, Malin, Abreva, Basilea, the antigens, antibodies, hormones, enzymes, and then last but not least, the genetic therapy, the gene therapy to eliminate diseases. And we're talking about the T cells now, and there it is about how well these T cells bind, what kind of binding force they have. And there are companies that build up databases, Personalis, for example. They have covered all of the human genes as well as the reaction of the human body. So they basically map the human body and their genetic reaction. Then you have the responses. So man is defined by its repertoire, by the way it fights, and also, of course, what it has in its genetic makeup. And then you have a list of the attacker and the defenders. And the entire history of a person is found in his T cells. I can see what the body has been fighting, and you can map the individual development of a person. Yeah, and then we're talking about the balance of the diseases. And we're talking about 58 billion immune receptors that may be included in a person. This is basically his memory. Schrödinger, both, you can pronounce it in both ways. We talked about their reaction, 10 idiosyncrasies that can be modified. And then we talked about how can I make vegetarian food more meat-like by adding red blood cells that give you that sizzling noise when you, in fact, fry them. I can build these genes. Chris, they do that. So you send your meat and then you get a genetic strand. And we talked about Illumina, that sequences the genes. We talked about Sartorius. This is the Porsche of the bioreactors. Without that kind of company, which, by the way, is from Göttingen, it would not have been possible to develop these companies. We talked about BioNTech. We will hear more about that in a minute. And then, of course, GenMap that I mentioned earlier. There it is about the DuoBody platform, the Hexabody platform too. One leads towards the virus, and the other one takes up a T cell to start off the fight against the disease. And Darzalex is already out there, and a new one has just been approved, and that's where you knock off your socks products have been coming from. We mentioned that earlier. Regeneron with their antibodies, and Novo Nordisk in the diabetics growth market. Many people in the world have diabetes, and 700 million is what is estimated in 20 years to come. Only half of them have been diagnosed, and only half of those are in treatment, and only half of those are in good treatment, and half of them actually reach an improvement of their situation. So it's a huge market up ahead of us, which we can fight with enzymes and hormones. I talked about enzymes, Novozymes, a Danish company from the detergent industry. Eurofins tests all of what is biological, and this is our walk through the fascinating world of biology that we are beginning to understand. And this is a very complex subject matter. And it is important that you have the impression that this is something really, really big. Really big in the sense that our world is changing, that there is a chance for healing that we haven't had before. So our lifespan will be extended. The quality of life is getting better. We are getting into a healthier, a better world because of these changes. And on the other hand, the investment side, we have new investment chances that we didn't have in the past, comparable to the development of the internet that started 25 years ago. And the top companies from back then are still dominant. Amazon, Microsoft, Google. They're about 20 years old. And their internet story may be 20, 25 years old. And they are the dominant players. And in what we have looked at today, we will also see the winners of the years to come. Again, BioNTech, from zero, they went to 50 billion in the stock exchange evaluation. Incredible what happened there. And you will have dramatic changes in some of these companies that I mentioned. All right. We will have a fairly soft start, not soft in the scientific sense, but soft in the sense of scientific understanding of it. So we have Professor Dr. Stefan Pauls from the Senckenberg Institute in Frankfurt. This is an endowment that has been around for many, many years, and it's fascinating research. And again, these little bugs that we mentioned earlier, the little beetles, we have to talk about those. What is it that we see in nature without using the human eye? And when I talked to Professor Pauls about the beaver building its castle on the river, or if I look at a little pond and with frogs in it, or if I look at the air when we did an Arctic sample, when you say, yeah, incredible, you can tell what kind of birds have been flying through that air. So we will discuss this with Professor Pauls, and this will be fascinating. And the second presentation today,
it's the third presentation today, and the second specific presentation is from Professor Dr. Stefan Schneckenburger. For my first impression of him was that he was just, we were on a botanic walking in Kirchenwald, and my wife and I, we thought we would walk around, and we only saw him looking in the countryside because he found a very rare orchidea. And this interest in what's happening around is a very characteristic of him. So he's always something interesting. He always finds something interesting, sex between the flowers in a very interesting level. He's very funny. So he links always the nature to. You can talk with him about economy as well. The inflation in Faust II presented in this book is very interesting. We have discussed about that. Today we will talk about Shakespeare, about the poisoning plants and the curing plants, and we can see that the world 500 years before knew already about the power of nature. Very interesting, very funny and inspiring. Professor Vichinkas again, he is linked to Mr. Dr. Schinkenberg, but he's investigating Gießen, the biotechnology. He has got find a bug. I'm not very into the animals, but there are insects that we have got millions of species, and they have got a different composition than human beings. And when we are talking about spiders and some diseases that are fought by insects in a very effective way, and we can adapt that to the mammals. So this could help us as human beings to get healthier or to find really new substances, and this is fascinating. We will hear him in the afternoon. So we cannot forget investment. So we have got the comments of Julia Gross, and she's talking about the new developments in biology, and she has a very good overview about the investments. And she will talk about 3 different topics that sounds very interesting. NK, natural killer cells, sounds more like a movie title, and she will talk about areas that are just ahead of us. So Professor Dr. Christoph Merten is a friend, and we are very happy to having a look in the finding a correct cancer medication, and he is talking about that. A couple of years ago he talked already. We were talking about tumor cells and the probes which medication is effective in an individual patient and which not. So there are evidence about that, that this could work. You can compare tumor cells. If his system shows that this medication could help, it's highly probable. There's a highly probability that this medication could work. He's got the tools. So, since his observations are always correct, well, we hope that in the next years, we're in the first phase, so we hope that in the next years he has really the options to have a treatment, a very adapted treatment. This could be something very, very big. He's come from far away, so we are very happy to listen to him. And then at the end, we have got the ultimative treatment of cancer, not only the finding of medication. So the company of BioNTech, not only it's a random finding, it's very focused findings. So the immunization of standard cancer types and the analyze of the cancers. You have got the cancer 27B, so we will give you a medication that is specially adapted to your body. This is really a very interesting program, not easy. It has a high potential in several levels, also for our investors. And even if you do not understand everything, but if you have got the impression there's something going on there, it's fantastic and amazing. So this really is helpful for today. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr. Leber. Please come to me. So we will have a look at our questions. We have got 10 minutes left until the break to discuss some questions. One question we got, if the tests of medication is going so well, why the analysts are still asking for more medication that's in the pipelines? That's one question of our viewer. So the revolution is just coming to us. We're starting with it. Going back 3 years ago, this quick development of a vaccine wouldn't have been possible. I think the last year was really revolutionary. I'm not talking just for talking. I think there's happened a lot. I have noticed that in the scientific discussions with NBL, the Institute of Molecular Biology in Heidelberg, and all the other scientists. I noticed an exchange in the Goethe University where scientists are talking. And one scientist from San Francisco told me the sequence of the coronavirus has been quicker than the virus spreading. So the scientists have worked together, and that has been impressive. And in a practical way, the Transpassion, BioNTech, and all the other companies has been very quick, and it has been caused an impression. I think 4 or 5 vaccinations has been developed in half a year, and the administration has reacted correspondingly. So this has led to the first changes we are having now, and I have to focus on the disease by itself. Cancer, I have got 3 years for it, several therapies and with some breaks, so I have to wait 3 years to analyze. So response of the human body is really slowing down. So the pre-phase is quick, but then I have to wait this time. This is also what the anti-vaxxers are mentioning. So we have been so quick, but we don't know how the disease will develop, how the vaccination, what consequences will have the vaccination. So again, I had a look at the results. We are looking at the immune response and the antibodies. So In BioNTech, I've lived that, but you see that in other companies as well. The human reaction has been really been very quick and enough to give an immune response. So the additional substances which pharmacological method we have used and so on. So the communication has been very open, and we have to trust in the science that the response has been very good of the immunology response. So I've noticed, and I think I've heard that a lot of companies that you have presented today are in Germany. So a lot of our presentations today will be held in German. So this really creates hopes that Germany is really in a good position. Could you confirm that a lot of companies are based in Germany? Well, the investigation in Germany is very good, as far as I know. You always have to fund it, but you have got the Fraunhofer Institute, the Heidelberg Institute, the Swiss institutes, and they are really good in development. I think in the basic research, I think Europe has really leader, but I think in this point we are very good. So how can I bring this to the investors' reality? CureVac and BioNTech, well, very rich people, millionaires, have invested. So being a millionaire or billionaire is not very popular. So there are not a lot of biotech investors also in the branch. So what leads that BioNTech is going to the market in New York, or is listed in the Netherlands because it's easier there. Or, well, let's say the seed investigation, because it's really more in Monsanto, because in Germany it is not very popular. So after the fundamental research, the companies have to look for other countries. This may be a discussion we should have. BioNTech would be only German. The tax motivation would be very low. So the system is not thought through. The system is not 100% good. We're missing an infrastructure of lawyers and business analysts, and we don't have these people in Germany. So from the commercial point, we are just lacking still. So second question, and this is a question from me, from my side also, when you talk, it is very interesting and amazing. Well, getting conclusion from the day-by-day life. Well, I think you're traveling a lot and meeting a lot of people. From this living, you are gaining investment ideas. How do you determine which company will be successful? Bucket analogy of the companies in America at the beginning of the 20th century. Yes. I don't know which one will be the survivor and the winner, but what helps is our research tools. I'm reading an article of Ms. Gross, and I'm thinking about that through. And maybe again on the cell surface, a signal that is an antibody. So the body can react or ignore it. And I understood that. And then we are doing a deeper look in all companies that are investigating that there are 10 to 20 companies. So there are some hints maybe by AI, but find in that companies that have dramatic that have got like a dramatic declaration that they have improved by 80%, and which company is mentioning which company, and this cost differentiation is very interesting. So I'm looking in the one company that the report is mentioning that they're working, and the annual report they're working with another company, and that's very interesting to read. So we have to see if there's a real business. A lot of companies have got a very good concept. They could do presentation all the day, and it would be very impressive, all the greatness. But you have to check if they have really clients. Are they collaborating with others? Are they receiving money for what they are doing? If they have got 5, 10, 20 clients, and that the big companies are in between, then I know that there's something. If it's still efficient, I don't know, but it is already a hint. There are once in a while I have got a discovery. There's one-hit wonder. Once in a while, classical from AE, where I saw where are the medication. It was before the permission of the medication last year, and there were companies that were inside this procedure, and then this company, Chiasma was this company, and then it was acquired. I like it when companies, they have got platforms. So I'm asking again, BioNTech, you have mentioned it very often, and also you showed how they raised up dramatically their volumes. How do they manage to be independent? And maybe they're also overstrained or overburdened with such a growth. At the beginning, I was very skeptical. I knew beforehand it was a very interesting company, but Mars, Dr. Mars, she was there, and I was like, oh, you're maybe expecting too much. How do you want to manage all that? But what I have lived in the last year, that BioNTech has no failure. All the procedure was correct from my point of view, without no failure, no contamination, and no problems in the site of investigation. It's incredible. Also with the patents, this was really a very interesting discussion. Well, BioNTech has got a very interesting discussion. We have got the next substances working, the next generation is there, and that's why I think that the next generation will be great. Just one platform is more than enough for us. Okay. So having a look at the at our time, so we are now nearly getting into a break. Last questions. 2 years ago, there are only IT experts. In the next years, we have got enough experts for the production? Oh, I don't know. But I know that a lot of the experts in the analysis of the data are at the USA. So I think a lot of will be performed in Silicon Valley.